Okay, today we're going to start with the linear equations. Now, a couple things. We'll probably do the scientific notation in a separate video. I don't want this to run more than 15 minutes. We're going to try to go over some sample problems, but I'm going to thoroughly explain them as we go. The first thing that you should recognize, right, is that on the xy coordinate plane, obviously x goes from left to right, y goes up and down. The easiest way to see, right, without doing much work on a linear equation is to put it in the form y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope, right, and b is the y-intercept. So we're going to come back to this a couple times. But so I'm going to go down to the Chapter 7 review quiz here, and we're going to take a look at it very quickly. Okay, so to find the x-intercept of an equation, right, this is where it crosses the x-axis. You're going to have to set y equal to 0 and solve for x. And vice versa. If you want the y-intercept, you have to set x equal to 0. Okay, so let's go ahead to the next one. Okay, solve the system by graphing. All right, so we've got x plus y equals 8, x minus y equals 2. And there's two ways to do this. There is the easy way and the hard way. Okay, now normally, right, if I were going to do this on my own, I would put these two in the y equals mx plus b format. So for x plus y equals 8, I would subtract the x to the other side. So y equals negative x plus 8. And then for the other one, right, I would move the x over and then multiply by a negative all the way across to get y equals. So since negative x went over, and then I reverse it, positive x, and then that 2 becomes a negative 2 because we're multiplying the negative for the second equation. So this one over here, right, this one here, I have moved here. So this is the easiest way to actually graph these. You start at the center point, right? You set x equal to 0, and then you go up or down according to what's added, which is b. Okay, so I have negative x plus 8. So for the first one, for negative x plus 8, what I'm going to do is start at the center point and plus 8. So I go up to 8. That is the first point. Now for these, I have to click on the little graph line there, right? Okay, so I have the first point. And then my slope is negative 1. That's rise over run. That means it goes down 1 and to the right 1. If it were positive, it would go up 1 and to the right 1. So I go down 1 over 1. That's the first line. Okay, now I have to graph the second line. All right, now y equals x minus 2. I start at the center point. I go down 2. Okay, because x is 0. So if x is 0, I'm moving up and down on y there. Okay, now I look at the slope. The slope is 1, right? It's 1 over 1. So from that point, I go up 1, over 1. And so the solution set here is where they intersect. Okay, so you put x first, x comma y. So if you're looking at that, you're like, okay, 5 comma 3. So the solution set right here is going to be 5 comma 3. All right, there is another way to graph this, and sometimes it asks you to graph it that way and won't count it correct unless you do. It asks you to do it by the intercept points, and that's trickier because you can get confused between x and y. So to do that, right, this would be the answer here. I'm just going to show you how you would do the intercept points. X plus y equals 8. If we take that, right, on the left, x plus y equals 8, we set each in turn them equal to 0 and plot where the other point would be. So if I set y equal to 0, okay, if y is 0, then x equals 8. So I would have to go over to x equals 8 and click on that point right there, right, at where my cursor is. Now, when I'd have to also do the other one, right, I would have to set x equal to 0, so at the center point here, and y would be 8. So I would have to go up, and this is the same point that I clicked earlier up here, right? So that would be the 0 point way. So for the other one, I get x minus y equals 2. Okay, if I set y equal to 0, then x is 2. So I would have to click right here, right where the cursor is. And then when I do the opposite, I get y equals negative 2 at x equals 0 when I plug in. So I would click kind of the same point there. So the issue is that it can be confusing when you start at the center, whether you go left or right or up or down, depending on if you're working with making y 0 or x is 0. If y is 0 and you're solving for x, you need to go right or left. If x is 0 and you're solving for y, you need to go up or down when you count those points. If it's negative, you go down. If it's positive, you go up. So it's easier to do the y equals mx plus b. All right, so let's go ahead to the next one here. Okay, the objective function z equals 6x plus 5y. Okay, so find the value of the objective function at each corner of the graphed region. All right, so what we have to do is take the points and plug them in. So point A, I'm not going to do all of these, but I'm going to do some of them. So point A, we look at it, it is x is 3 and y is 9. So what I need to do is plug 3 in for x and 9 in for y. So let's just do that here. Z equals, so this is for point A. 6 times 3 plus 5 times, I believe 9 was the point. So you just look at each point, right? And then you plug them back into this equation, okay, just to solve them. So that would be 18 plus 45. So z equals 18 plus 45, right? And then you're actually going to solve that to get your answer there, okay? So you would be solving that for each of these. And now, the maximum value of the objective function, you would have to solve all of those and pick the biggest number for that, right? And it's either going to be probably point C or point A. Let's see. So 9 times 6 is 54 plus 15. Yeah, it's probably going to be point D. So you'd have to solve for all those and pick the biggest one for the maximum. So I'm going to go to the next one for now. All right, graph the equation. Now this is the thing. Select integers for x from negative 3 to 3 inclusive. You have been dealing with linear equations where x is just to a power of 1. As soon as you square something, it vastly changes the shape of the graph. Okay, so if you have an x squared and it's positive, right? So let me go down here. Okay. If x is squared, you have a parabola. It opens up if it is positive, and it opens down if it is negative. Okay, so I'm going to show you exactly how to do this in a second here. So to actually graph it, you need to pick a few points to actually graph it. So let's go ahead and do this right here. Okay, so I have my graph right here. Now, the parabola is this thing that I've just selected, right? The one that kind of bends down. So if it's x squared, which it is, it's going to be like this, okay? And you have to pick a couple points on the positive and negative to make the parabola. So you start with x equals 0. You plug it in. 0 squared plus 2. So it starts at 2. Okay, now the next point, right, you can see as I move this will kind of affect the shape of it. Let's put point 1 in here. Okay, and it says negative 3 to 3 inclusive. So we have to plot pretty much every single point. 1 squared, so x is 1, squared is 1, plus 2, right? It's going to make that 3. So where x is 1, y is 3. Now where x is negative 1, it's going to be exactly the same. It's going to be 3 as well, because negative 1 squared is 1, plus 2 is 3. Okay, so a positive parabola is going to look like this. If it were negative, it would be facing down instead. That's just the way that it would work out when you do it. We'll talk about cubes in a minute. I don't know if that's going to come up, but if it's a cube, or a fifth or a seventh, it's going to look like this that has a negative on the left and goes up to the right. So it's like the parabola, but the left part goes down. Okay, that's because when you cube a negative number, it stays negative. So if I put a -1 cubed here, it would be negative. All right, so I still need to do another couple points. I'm going to put 3 in here. 3 squared is 9, plus 2 is 11. So at 3, I have to mark it at 11. That won't let me. Okay, I think that's enough. It already has the parabola there. All right. Okay, it says rewrite the equation in exponential form. You haven't had to do much logarithms yet. Basically, it's to a power of 6 there. I'll come back and explain logarithms later. Okay, I'm going to do another video for that. I want to just do linear equations and graphing for now. So we're going to come back to logarithms. Okay, y equals 2x plus 8. Graph the linear function using the slope and y-intercept. This is the easy way. This is the way I like to do it. So you're going to start right here at the center point. You look at it, 2x plus 8. So you start at the center where x is 0. If x is 0, all you have is the b. This is in the form mx plus b plus 8. So you go up to 8, and that's the first point. So you click on the line, 8. Now, my slope, rise over run. 2 means 2 up, 1 to the right. So because it's 2 over 1. So I go up 2, over 1, and that's the plot. Okay, that's the easiest way to do that with the linear function. Y equals mx plus b, where m is rise over run, and 8, right, would be the intercept there. Okay, so that one was easy. Okay, solve the system by the substitution method. All right, now you need to know what the substitution method is. That's where you plug in something from another equation into the original. They made it easy for you. They have y right here solved. So all you have to do is take y from the second equation, where it's negative 3x, and plug it in to y up here. So you get x minus 3x equals negative 4. Okay, so that's where I substitute the bottom one in. Now, that's just negative 2x equals negative 4. When you divide by negative 2, you get rid of that negative. X equals 2, right? So you have a negative there. My auto format, yeah, that's clearer right there. All right. When you divide by negative 2, it gets rid of it. X equals 2. Okay, so that's going to be the answer right there. The solution set. Okay, now we need to type an ordered pair. So we need to plug x back into one of those two to solve for it. So far, we have that x is 2. So you got to put a parenthesis, then you got to put a comma. That's the x part. Now we need to solve for y. So we go back over here, where x is 2. We have y. 2 plus y equals negative 4. If we plug it into the original, 2 plus y equals negative 4. So all I'm doing is taking the value and plugging it back into the original there. When I subtract 2, I get y equals negative 6. And I could verify that by plugging it in the other. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. Okay, so y is negative 6. So my solution set is 2, negative 6. All right, so let's do up to 10 here, and then I'll probably stop the video. All right. Wow. Okay, the following functions. X squared plus 8x plus 15. So you are going to have a parabola here. The way that you normally do this, right, is to find the minimum and maximums by factoring. Now, none of the homework actually had this yet, so hopefully you won't have to do this. But in general, when you have something like this, to factor it, I'm going to put some more space here. If I have x, let me put up to the second, x squared plus 8x plus 15, okay? The numbers on the right are multiplied together, and the numbers in the middle are added together to factor that. So if I were going to factor this, right, I would be like, okay, 15 is 5 times 3. Well, 5 plus 3 is 8. So it factors into x plus 3 and x plus 5. Okay, so those are the points that we're going to need to worry about now. Now look, when it asks these questions about the parabola opens upward or downward, x is positive. It's going to open upward. Okay, it's going to look just like those other ones that we did. And we're going to be able to find the vertex, which is where, in this case, let's see, it's going to be the lowest point, right? So you need to determine the min and maxes there. Okay, so for right now, I'm going to stick with the linear. So in the second video, I'm going to talk about how to find the vertex of a parabola and how to do the logarithms. But they were not a significant portion of the homework. So I want to make sure you're clear on graphing for now. Okay, so that's what this video is going to be, graphing. That's fine. All right. Let's look at this one. A student earns $13 per hour for tutoring and $5 per hour as a teacher's aide. Let x equal the number of hours each week spent tutoring and y equal the number of hours each week spent as a teacher's aide. Okay, so now we're going to need to answer all of these questions here. So let's see. Tutoring center requires each tutor spend at least 3 hours per week tutoring. Tutoring center requires that each tutor spend no more than 7 hours per week tutoring. Okay, so since x is the number of hours each week spent tutoring and y is the number of hours spent as a teacher's aide, z is going to be the total amount earned, which is 13 times the tutoring, which was x, plus, and then we got the y value, 5y. Right? So we don't put the dollar sign in this. Okay, so the student is bound by 3 constraints. We need to write an inequality for each constraint. To have enough time for studies, the student can work no more than 22 hours per week. So what are the hours per week? It's the hours spent tutoring plus the hours spent as a teacher's aide. So, right, x plus y, those two values there, have to be equal to or less than 22. That's how you would actually do this one. So less than or equal to, it eats the bigger value, right? That's kind of how I remember that. So x plus y has to be less than or equal to 22 because those are the hours by themselves. Now, the tutoring center requires that each tutor spend at least 3 hours per week tutoring, which means that x has to be greater than or equal to 3, right? That's how you would write that inequality. Then the tutoring center requires that each tutor spend no more than 7 hours per week tutoring. That means that x has to be less than or equal to 7. So that's how you would write that one. Okay, so graph the system of inequalities in part B. All right, so what we would do is we would take the first line, x is, let's say, greater than or equal to 3, right? So we would plot along 3 and make a vertical line, and everything above that would be filled in. Okay, so let me see how I can do this here. So I've got the line at 3. Okay, now everything above it should be filled in. And then I've got, since it's equal to, it's a solid line. Then I've got the line at 7, right, which is up here, which I would put it in. All right, so the values for these two, it has to be below this. I don't see how to fill in the amount, but the actual solution set would be between these two values right here, right? Now, when we do x plus y is less than or equal to 22, we would set that in the form y equals mx plus b, right? Where y is less than or equal to negative x plus 22. So I would start at the 0 point, right? And so if I'm going to make this other line, here I start at 22, and then it's negative x. It goes down 1 over 1. So all I did, right, was put this, this here in the form y equals mx plus b. And now I need to figure out how to fill in. I think this. Yeah, I think I can fill in with this tool right here. So now we're trying to decide which of these they have in common. So it's got to be less than or equal to 22. If it's less than, it's below this. It's got to be above 3, and it's got to be below 7. So that is the solution set right there, because it's all of those areas. Okay, so you plot the 3 lines, and it can include the solid line. If it did not have an equal sign, then it would just be a dotted line that you would use. So we can go over this again, but in general, right, at every point, x3, x7, and then you turn this into y equals mx plus b to solve it, and just know that since it's less than or equal to, it's below that you're considering, and you find the intersection points of that to solve the problem. There's another step, but we're going to skip it for now. All right. The rectangular coordinate system is formed using 2 number lines that intersect at right angles at their 0 points, right? It's 90 degrees, okay? Okay, now, as we said, the horizontal line is the x-axis, the vertical line is the y-axis, and their point of intersection, 0, 0, is the origin. That perfectly explains it, ordered pairs. Now, there's one more thing I want to do. If you are given 2 points, okay, if you're given 2 points, you can construct a line from them. So if my points for x and y were 4, 2, and let's say 1, 3, okay? If I were given these 2 points, this is the last thing I'm going to do today, because I don't want to go too long on this video. You need to find the slope and the intersect to write an equation for it. So you can do that with any 2 points. So you do that by writing the change in y divided by the change in x. So we've got x comma y, which means that in the first place, the first y would be 2. So the change in y, we would put 2 minus 3, and we would put all of that and put it over the x's in the same order, right? So this 2 right here was my first one, and I used this one, y2. The x here would be 4 minus 2, over 4 minus 2. It has to be in the same order. So the slope of this would be negative 1 over 2. So if I were going to write an equation, I would say y equals negative 1 over 2 times x. Okay, so x would actually be on the top of that, right? Negative x over 2, really. Right? Y equals negative 1/2 times x plus b. We need to solve for b. How do we do it? We pick a point and we plug it in. Okay, so one of those points, 4, 2. Which one was x? X was 4. And y was 2. So I put 2 equals negative 1/2 times 4 plus b. So negative 1/2 times 4 is negative 2, right? When I actually do that multiplication, I have to add 2 since I have negative 2. So 2 equals negative 2 plus b. I add 2 to both sides to get 4 equals b. So my equation for the line is y equals negative 1/2 x plus 4. And this is always going to be the equation. Okay, I'm going to talk about parallel and perpendicular lines next time, but in general, this is the form you want to get your line equation in if x is to 1 power, because it's going to make everything so easy. You would start at the origin, the center point, where x is 0. Then you would go up 4 points, right, to 4. And then you would go down 1 and over 2 because it's negative 1/2. And those 2 points there would plot the line. Okay, so hopefully this isn't too hard to follow. I will go ahead and do a little bit more. I'll make another video, but good luck. And if you have any questions, please let me know.